There are two features of the large intestine channel that are unusual. The first is that it is a channel that crosses sides of the body, which it does at Du 26, Renjiang, men's center. The other unique feature of the large intestine channel is in the point names. There is a similarity, a duplication, in the names of the points below the elbow or below the knee across the Yangming channels, with the points on the leg mirroring the points on the arms. Just below the elbow and the knee, we have large intestine 10 on the arm, Shousanli, and the arm 3 mile. And on the leg, we have stomach 36, Zusanli, the leg 3 mile on the leg. The next 2 points have the above and below characters in both channels. On the large intestine channel, it is above and below the sides or the ridge, while on the stomach channel, it is above and below the hollow. But stomach 37 and stomach 39 are also called Shanglian and Xialian, as well as an alternate name, so they actually reflect directly the same name. Lian, the side, or an angle or a corner, also means honest, while Shu, hollow, also means false or unreal. Then, at the wrist or the ankle, we have a creek on both channels. Yong Chi, large intestine 5, the Yang creek, and stomach 41, Jie, the separating or the liberating creek. There is no other channel pair where the arm and the leg portions of the channel reflect each other so strongly. This suggests that the Yangming channel points may have been named earlier and with a different paradigm than the other channel points might have been named. The large intestine can be considered to have 3, 4, or 5 parts. In 3-part language, it means the ascending, the transverse, and the descending colon. But the sigmoid is a separate entity from the descending colon, and therefore it makes it a 4-part organ. On the front end, we can distinguish the cecum as a separate part from the ascending colon, as it is a pouch used for fermentation in grass-eating animals rather than for absorption. And in non-grass-eating animals, it develops mostly into the appendix. So that would make it a 5-count organ, or perhaps 3 sections with a front and a back end. This suggests that the name of large intestine 2, Jian, 2nd space, and large intestine 3, 3rd space, may be related to that. The character Jian shows the sun coming through a door, meaning it is something in between, just as the intestinal sections are sandwiched between the different sections, between the cecum, appendix, and the sigmoid colon. Large intestine 1 was not named the 1st space. Its name, Shangyang, suggests something that is being traded or exchanged. So it suggests the 3rd section of the intestine, the part that exchanges, the descending sigmoid colon. It is a bit counterintuitive to go backwards in the intestine as we move forwards in the channel points, and it may work well enough the other way around also. However, in trying to associate either large intestine 1 or large intestine 3 with the descending or ascending colons, not including the cecum and appendix, I find large intestine 1 to have a stronger effect on the descending colon. But that might be because I see more issues in the descending colon. It might also be because I have a strong affinity for using large intestine 1 and 2 together as a metal-water combination, whereas using large intestine 2 and 3 together would imply using 2 elements, water and wood, which have no affinity or reason to work together. In looking purely at point names, the merchant, or exchange, in large intestine 1 would suggest exchange with the outside world, hence the descending colon, and the point next to large intestine 3 is Hegu, large intestine 4, and Gu is often interpreted to mean Gu Chi, although it can also mean a plain valley without any association with Gu Chi. So the place where the large intestine unites with Gu Chi would be at the ileocecal valve, as the Gu Chi is in the small intestine. That would make large intestine 3 the point of the ascending colon rather than of the descending colon. Regardless of which it is, large intestine 1 and 2 together are good supporting points for affecting intestinal issues, be it inflammation, fissures, bleeding, malabsorption, etc. This is also a combination used for large intestine problems as the metal-water combination, if there is pressure on large intestine 5, the fire point. This can include musculoskeletal issues as well as face, gum, or teeth issues, especially when there is heat, redness, or inflammation. Large intestine 2 is a good point for eyelids as well as for red eyes, such as in sty or conjunctivitis. It was originally a sty point and used for problems for lacrimations, but I do use it for red eyes as well. I prefer Oku, direct moxa on the point, when it is used for eyes. When used for eyes, I will often take large intestine 2 on the front joint that is distal to the official location, as this is the location recommended by Sawada. For red eyes, you can also add Oku moxa on liver 1, which would be located in the center of the big toe, kind of the way we locate pericardium 9. I personally do not use large intestine 3 much and look at this point still as a theoretical option for relating to the ascending colon. Many practitioners use this point as Dabai, the Great White, in tongue system as part of the Lingu Dabai set. Large intestine 4, Hegu, the uniting valley, is obviously one of the most famous points. Whether this is a case where the Gu is meant to represent a valley, as in a valley between the two bones, or whether it is short for Gu, as in grain, food chi, is up to individual interpretation. This location between the two bones is correlated to the brain with large representation in the brain. It is a point that stimulates the brain, and meditators will often be instructed to press hard on large intestine 4 as a way to keep one from falling asleep, to wake up, to oxygenate the brain. It is often used diagnostically for the state of the brain, and especially in relationship to motor control. A sunken, flaccid large intestine 4 suggests stronger atrophy in the brain. It is quite common to see weakness or atrophy on large intestine 4 in elderly patients, while liver 3 area tends to get hard and congested. In spite of this point's great popularity, I personally rarely treat it, with one exception, using the Monica liver treatment for hepatitis or other physical liver damage, in which case I need a large intestine 4 on the right side and liver 3 on the left side. An iron pumping cord is connecting the 2 points, with a black clip on large intestine 4 on the right and the red clip on liver 3 on the left. Large intestine 5, Yong Chi, or the Young Creek, or the ravine. Most of the points that have this character for a creek are in between tendons. Stomach 41, Jie Xi, kidney 3, Tai Xi, and gallbladder 43, Xia Xi. Small intestine 3, Ho Xi, though not between tendons, is at the end of a crease, so that you can say that there is a creek-like structure there. The only outlier is spleen 18, Tian Xi, which is an intercostal space. So that might be considered a ravine or a creek in some manner also. In the case of large intestine 5, the character is a bit of a continuation of the theme of intestinal spaces and food, as the right part of the kata Xi is for a ravine, a creek, is valley, Gu. So it's kind of a continuation of large intestine 4 in some way. Large intestine 5 is the fire point of the channel, and it is used diagnostically that way. If there is pressure pain on large intestine 5, it calls for the use of the metal water points, large intestine 1 and 2. I also use it in the Kauai protocol for shoulder pain, using lung 9 and large intestine 5. This can be done with needles alone or with the addition of an ion pumping cord, with lung 9 receiving the red clip and large intestine 5 the black clip. Large intestine 6, Pian Li, has an interesting name. Pian means to lean. Li means to experience. The stop at the end of the season or a cycle. The name, being a bit esoteric, would suggest we would find lots of meanings and usage, but in truth, I use this point only for gum issues, primarily inflammation of the gums. The location is about 1 sun below the official location, and is taken between the tips of the index and the middle fingers when you interlace the hands. This usage is achieved best with Ocumoxa. Although this point is not exactly large intestine 6, because it treats the gums, and because the large intestine lower channel penetrates the gums and the teeth, it makes sense to call this point large intestine 6, even though Ling Shu 10 clearly states that the lower starts at Pian Li 3 Tsun above the wrist. Large intestine 7, Wen Liu, the warming of the flow, is another point that by name should invoke a lot of options and ideas for treatment, perhaps gynecologically, or related to kidney 7, Full Yu, which stands opposite the clock to it. But in my clinical reality, I have not found those yet. Large intestine 8 and large intestine 9 is another pair of points that by name one would expect a lot more out of. For one thing, Lian, which means a side or a corner, also means honest and incorruptible, as well as to examine. So certainly a quality one should be interested in. They also relate by name to stomach 37 and stomach 39, Shang and Xiajuxu, the lower head points of the large and small intestine, which are also the sea of the Chang. Stomach 37 and 39 are actually have an alternate name that are the same as large intestine 9 and 8. So while the stomach line on the leg, Yang Ming, is used a lot, the arm line between the wrist and up to just below the elbow is not used much at all by most practitioners, myself included. This is an interesting issue to contemplate. My sense that this is due to us no longer bearing weight on the arms, but perhaps there are interesting usages to be extracted from these 4 points, given that they are a direct reflection of the stomach channel area of importance of the sea of blood. With large intestine 10, which reflects the same name as stomach 36, San Li, we are breaking the pattern, and this is a point that has a much wider use by many, many practitioners. Li, mile, or a hamlet or a village, suggests regularity. There are 6 points with this character. The 2 3-mile points, large intestine 10 and stomach 36, the 2 5-mile points, large intestine 13 and liver 10, and 2 points that are written with Li as mile, but really should be using Li interior. This is heart 5, Tong Li, penetrating the interior, and in Ling Shu 10, it is written as Li interior, and Ren 11, Jian Li, the erecting or the establishing, the interior. These points engage the numbers 3 and 5 and reflect that on the arm and the leg, with the 5-mile points having gained little popularity among acupuncturists. In fact, the arm 5-mile, large intestine 13, was considered contraindicated for needling. This suggests that this neat ritualistic arrangement, using the basic layers of 3 and 5, arm and leg, yin and yang, may have originated in some geomantic tradition and was not aimed at as a therapeutic usage that acupuncturists are interested in. Nonetheless, both stomach 36 and large intestine 10 are very popular points, and they correspond to the muscles that control the foot and the hand. I use a point that is higher than large intestine 10, and that is on the edge of the bone. a point we call the immune point. It is usually slightly closer to large intestine 11 than to large intestine 10, but it can be anywhere in between them. This point is used for any immune issues, including autoimmune, which may show as pressure pain on Sanjiao 16, the lymph on the neck, or right stomach 26-27, reflecting abdominal lymph, as well as across the posterior iliac crest. The immune point is also the #1 go-to point for Shaoyang side headaches. Large intestine 11, Qi, the bending point, the bending pond, is a point I consider as the immune point, and I take it slightly lower in the area between large intestine 10 and 11, usually closer to 11, and on the edge of the bone. The Qi, to bend part of the name, suggests that the point should be found with the arms bent. I use the same logic with liver 8, Qi Chuan, the bending spring, and find the point with the knee slightly bent. The idea of a pool, qi, means something that aggregates or accumulates. For example, Tianqi is a battery and literally means an electrical pool. This suggests some capacity of storage for points with this character, which are Sanjiao 4, Yong Chi, the pool of yang, pericardium 1, Tianqi, the pool of heaven, and gallbladder 20, Feng Qi, the pool of the wind. What is being pulled at large intestine 11 is unclear, though it could be suggestive of movement, the ability to bend. For example, I use the immune point for pain when bending the back. However, I associate it less with the name than it resolving the PSIS and hence allowing easier bending in the back. Large intestine 12, Jiao Liao, is an interesting name because Liao is usually translated as a bone hole, but there is quite a bit more to Liao than an indentation in the bone. The left part of Liao is the bone radical. The right is to soar, or the sound of the wind. The top part of that are feathers or wings, and the bottom is hair. So a hole in the bone suggests something like a conch, something that amplifies the wind, that facilitates flight. Liao points are located at places that have dense innervation and affect the nervous system, like the zygomatic arch, and most famously the Liao points in the sacrum foramens, which lie over the sacral parasympathetic plexus. So these are points that are meant to have a big oomph to them, like when the wind passes through a conch and its sound is amplified. They have an amplification power. It suggests a lot of movement capacity and acceleration. It is like when you take something in a pipe and narrow the pipe, suddenly there's more acceleration, there's more movement. So that's what Liao is meant to suggest. In the case of large intestine 12, the sensitivity of the spot is what gives it that connotation, and not so much its global effect, at least not to my knowledge. It is certainly a sensitive spot, electrical-like, on the elbow. The 5-mile points, large intestine 13 and liver 10, are unclear to me as to how or why they receive this kind of name that might suggest an equivalent importance to stomach 36 or a role in regulation. They may have been named that way because of the large vessels that they are on. The name for large intestine 4, Binao, seems to be a description of its locality, and it may well be the case. In Japan, large intestine 14 is a very important point for all eye problems, and so is large intestine 15. Both points are also very good for voice and throat problems, especially hoarseness and loss of voice. You can take large intestine 14 further up the deltoid towards large intestine 15 and possibly use the whole line between 14 and 15 for these purposes. For deltoid pain, meaning pain on large intestine 14, I turn to kidney 7 and or UB 40-43, needle towards the scapula, as well as small intestine 9 and 10, needle towards the deltoid. How do we get from large intestine 14 to the eyes? Of course, there is the channel connection to the face and the eyes, and we see the use of large intestine 2 for eyes. But it is interesting to do some further analysis on the characters for the pupil of the eye and the arm as it appears in large intestine 14. This will lead us to breaking down characters to, let's call it extreme minutia, but when we in the modern era are trying to see if a point will affect something in a certain way, sometimes we might find that there is some minute detail that will give us a clue and initiate our experimentation with that point and see if it creates the desired effect. Tong, the pupil of the eye, is a character that appears also, for example, in Gallbladder 1, Tong Ziliao. It is made of the I radical on the left and the phonetic Tong, a virgin, for celibacy or a child. The character Tong, a virgin, is composed of Chong, a serious or heavy, and a crime, Qian. The character B for the arm is broken down as the flesh radical at the bottom, and above is the law, P. P is composed of rules and or the seal, which is mouthed to criminals or those who suffer hard labor. These two last components, the characters for criminals in the arm and the pupil, are of the same origin and differ only by one horizontal stroke. So it is possible that someone had this kind of insight when they chose how to pick up a particular character for large intestine 14, or that perhaps someone later on saw something in common between the character B in large intestine 14 and Tong for the pupil of the eye, and decided to experiment and see if large intestine 14 affects the eyes, and it just so happens that it does. I cannot tell which came first, but it's interesting to note that there is some interesting correlation there. What this suggests to us is that there are potential possibilities in contemplating names of points that will yield clinical results, and that it is up to us to try to excavate and see if the wisdom of the ancients has relevance to what we are doing today. Of course, there is a whole other way, far simpler, to associate large intestine 14 and 15 with the eyes, and that is through imaging the deltoid and the eye as similar in shape. A similar image would work with a mouth imposed on the deltoid, suggesting that this is why the deltoid is good for voice, though that would really be the vocal cords, which are also oval but are a little bit less visual. And there may be lots of other explanations. It is entirely possible that they are all ways that point to the same clinical reality, some with graphic tools and some with more literary ones. Large intestine 15, Jianyu, again connotes its location, related to the shoulder. Like large intestine 14, it can be used for voice and eyes, though I tend to take it further down on the arm for those purposes. Large intestine 15 is also a skin and a detox point. In that case, it is taken at the official location. It is combined with kidney 9. Though kidney 9 does affect the liver, in this combination, it is large intestine 15 that is considered to have a heavier effect on the liver. And again, one might imagine a triangle of the liver over the deltoid. And in this case, I look at kidney 9 more as a detox for the kidney, although it does affect the liver. The character U for shoulder, or shoulder bone, is composed of a bone on the left and U, the phonetic, on the right. Nowadays, U is a district, a mountainous district, which is one way to look at it as the shoulder, as having a mountain there. In ancient times, U was also a monkey, a demon face, now written as a field, with a character for hind legs or a rump, to trample, to be foolish, uses the same character, but with a heart below it. So it is like to have folly. Okay. That character is the orange character at the very bottom. It's the addition of the heart character. Monkeys do have pronounced shoulder usage because of their more active arms. And when a person tramples and acts silly, like a monkey, our shoulders will usually no longer be held and will slump. This is likely because we are intoxicated, and large intestine 15 detoxifies the liver from chemicals, commercial, pharmaceutical, or recreational. Large intestine 15 is a point that resonates well and works better with Okyu direct moxa. 15 to 21 moxa threads are the norm for large intestine 15, as opposed to the standard 7 or 8 on most points. Large intestine 16 is a point I have ignored like many others for years. I then heard that it is claimed that it is listed as a point on the Sea of Marrow. Although I could not find any reference to substantiate this, it got me to contemplate the point in this light. The point name is Jirgu, the huge bone, and a huge bone can only be huge if there is a lot of marrow. So maybe it does have something to do with the Sea of Marrow, and it turns out that this is a good supporting point for lumbar spine problems. Large intestine 17 and 18 are both on the SCM and reflect the thyroid as well as the state of the vagus nerve, and hence the state of the autonomic nervous system, though I would normally be pressing on large intestine 18 directly, whereas I would be pressing on large intestine 17 through the SCM and not directly. This fits with the name of large intestine 18. To dash is a bit like chong, to move seriously, and connotes a rush and urgency, hence the nervous system. The neck reflects the state of the nervous system, as it is between the brain and the body. It is where the nerves signal dash through. The character to dash, or chimney, as Ellis translates it often, appears only in the neck points. Large intestine 18, fu tu, assisting the abrupt, ren 22, the celestial chimney, and stomach 10, shui tu, the water dashing. Tension in the neck will tend to congest parasympathetic feedback and result in an overacting active sympathetic nervous system. While these points are not the big players that, say, stomach 9 might be, they are similar to it, in that tightness here reflects both the thyroid and the nervous system. For nervous system congestion, I use opposite side Sanjiao, either Sanjiao 5 or Sanjiao 8. If these points reflect the thyroid, then use kidney points. Large intestine 18 is also used for cervical neck problems, especially C5. Large intestine 19 is named He Liao, the crane Liao. It is a Liao point, and it does display the sensitivity on pressure one would expect from a hole that transmits the sound of the wind. This sensation is related more to the gums and not so much to the lip. And since most of us do not needle inside the gums and assume the point is on the lip, it becomes a point that is a bit of a disappointment given its name. I wonder if the ancients did not actually think of large intestine 19 as being under the lip or the gum, which would make sense given the fact that the large intestine channel has a special relationship with the teeth. Large intestine 20 is one of 3 points with a character yin to welcome. Large intestine 20, welcome the fragrance. Stomach 5, the great welcome. And stomach 9, welcome human. These welcome our breath, our food, and then a combination of the two, our metabolism. I use large intestine 20 more diagnostically for all nose as well as sinus issues, which will tend to reflect on large intestine 20 and or stomach 3 area. And I treat the immune points around the navel or gallbladder 40 for that. Certainly, large intestine 20 is needled by many practitioners to open the nasal cavities as well as for deviated septum. I tend to not use it with needles, but I will place diode rings here to open the nasal passages, and patients who snore I will tape magnets on large intestine 20 at bedtime. One side south facing and one side north facing magnets. And these patients report good results with this for their snoring.